Truth Frequency Radio Network. KTFRN. Worldwide.
Hola, this is Sienna inviting you to join me tonight as we navigate through the seen and the unseen, explore external and internal realities, expose on-world and off-world agendas, discover a path to joy and freedom. Now, join me as we illuminate the Shadowland and reclaim our birthright as free and sovereign beings. Good evening, everyone. This is Sienna and you are at Illuminating the Shadowland on Truth Frequency Radio Network. Tonight, I am so honored to have as my guest Max Igan, a much-respected sage and truth warrior, a man who has dedicated his life to educating humanity about the truth of our enslavement and what we can do to break free and manifest an outcome that restores sanity and something that we can be truly proud of. Max's website is an education center par excellence, filled with wisdom, videos, articles, up-to-date intel about the truth that has been hidden from us in our shadowlands for eons. This modern-day way shower working for us, the truth is now very much within our grasp and solutions we can realize with him. All it takes is the willingness to take the blinders off and educate ourselves. I'm going to quote one brief quote before I bring Max on from his website, which is thecrowhouse.com. There is no true liberty for the individual except as he finds it in the liberty for all. There is no true security for the individual except as he finds it in the security for all. Welcome to the show, Max.
Thanks for having me on, Sienna. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Well, Max, you are such an extraordinary truth sayer that I am going to cut right to the chase here because I know that you've been to the Gaza Strip. I know that you've seen what goes on there, and for the many reasons that we will dive into in this two-part series, we seem to have our blinders on when it comes to Gaza and the lies and the programming we've been told. I know you've been to Gaza, Max. Would you be willing to share a bit about your trip there, what you experienced there, and illuminate us to the truth of what is actually going on in Palestine?
Well, Gaza Strip is a remarkable place. It really is. There's a certain energy when you get there. It feels quite amazing. It really does. I can see why they want to keep it so much. I can see why Israel wants it so much. But what we've got in Gaza Strip, I mean, contrary to what people believe, people seem to think it's a stronghold of terrorists. It's really not. It's in fact the world's largest open-air prison. It's home to about 1.8 million people now, and about 900,000 of them are children. Over half the population is children, so it'd be more than 900,000 probably. And these people are under horrific conditions. They've been under blockade since 2007. Israel will allow virtually nothing in and nothing out. They are subject to constant attacks from Israel and constant provoking from Israel. And when they respond, Israel cries victim and bombs the place, and that's what happens. When I was in Gaza Strip, we had rockets land in Gaza Strip, and Palestine didn't respond. I woke up one morning, it was machine gun fire, and it was a boat being fired upon, a fishing boat, just offshore being fired upon by an Israeli gunboat. And Palestine didn't respond. They do this all the time to these people, and when they do respond, they cry victim and they carpet bomb the place, and it's actually quite horrific. At the moment in Gaza Strip, they're down to about 3 hours electricity a day. The sewage plant is overflowing, so the lower sections of Gaza City are actually up to 2 feet deep in raw sewage at the moment because they can't get the parts to fix the sewage plant. The buildings have got water tanks on the roof that have got salt water in them because Israel will allow no It's absolutely disgusting. It's disgraceful. And the reason the place is under blockade really is because they voted for a government that Israel and America didn't like. And it was a two-party system, the way we've got in most countries. And so they let them have a democratic election, but because the people in Gaza Strip voted for Hamas, which was essentially a vote for no checkpoints and no more bulldozing of Palestinian houses, then Israel basically proclaimed it a terrorist state, and they put a wall around the place. And it's a democratically elected government, and it's a population mainly of children, but all of these people are subject to foul mistreatment from Israel because they voted for someone Israel didn't like, basically. And it's been going on for 7 or 8 years now, and it's continuing, and it's getting really, really bad in there. I mean, even if they don't continue to bomb the place, under these severe restrictions that Gaza Strip is under, within the next 10 or 15 years, the place will be too polluted to be able to live there anyway. So it's basically a slow kill operation that we're seeing. And the important thing to remember is, as I've said, it's mainly children. Over half the population is children. And Gaza Strip is an area that's 25 miles long and 5 miles wide. There's 1.8 million people in there. It's one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. And they go in there with one of the most sophisticated militaries, one of the most sophisticated, well-trained militaries on Earth, which is what Israel has. And they say they're having a war against these people. It's a population kept in an open-air prison, devoid of any import or any nationality or any anything at all to keep them going. And they try to repel these Israeli occupiers all the time. And it's called a war. It's ridiculous. It's not a war. It's a slaughter. And it's been going on for a long time because the world's not paying attention.
Well, I really encourage all of you out there that are listening tonight to go to Max's YouTube channel, to his website, and look at a 2-hour presentation he just posted there called Deprogramming the Collective. And it's hard to look at some of this. You have a 6-minute video of what's really happening in Gaza. And I really think it behooves us to look this straight in the face, along with many of the other atrocities that are going on around the world, because we are being fed such a line of BS about what's going on there. And we are being told that Israel is the victim here, and that they had the excuse to do this because of the Holocaust. And we are being fed a line that is completely and totally a lie, while 900,000 children are getting slaughtered. I think it's really time to raise our voice. You were saying that they absolutely have no voice at all, that these are people without a country. They can't get passports. They can't get out of there. They can't get media in there to help them or to see the real situation that's going on there. Is that right, Max?
Well, that's true. You see, when Israel was first founded in Palestine, it was founded in 1946 and 1947, 1948. That whole area kind of went down, that whole era after World War II. The State of Israel was founded in Palestine. And they've been expanding basically ever since. There's been all sorts of political wars and all sorts of political stuff that's happened to cause this. And people may say, oh, it hasn't just been Israeli expansion, it's been them protecting themselves against Jordan or whatever. But if you look at the way all the wars have gone down, the result of each conflict has been more than for Israel. So that just kind of says a lot to me anyway. But it's got to the point now, I mean, they had a 3-stage plan. The first was to set up the State of Israel. The second was to divide Gaza and the West Bank so there was no road between. And the third was to remove Palestine from the maps. And that's what they've done now. There is no Palestine. If you look on a map of the world, you will not find Palestine on there anywhere. So because Palestine isn't seen as a country anymore, then the Palestinians who live within the borders of Gaza Strip and West Bank have no nationality. Therefore, they can't get a passport. Therefore, they can't travel. So they're stuck there. They can't leave. There's nothing the people in Gaza Strip can do. And they don't have any international news services. They don't have a voice in the United Nations. They don't have any type of international body that they're a part of because they're not recognized as a country. You know, they tried to give them recognition last year at a vote in the United Nations, but of course Israel will not recognize that recognition. and it will not open the borders anyway. The Rafah crossing, the only way out of Palestine, the only way out of Gaza is in Egypt. You can't get into Israel, they just won't let you in. There are border crossings, but they're very, very rarely will they let people through. The only really way into Gaza is to get through the Rafah crossing. That's been open for 9 days this year. So all of the students, many students in Palestine, many university students, can get into Egypt, and they'll go into to university in Cairo and all this sort of stuff. They can't do any of that. All of the things, even people who are coming out for medicine or for doctor's appointments or anything at all they had to do in Israel, in Egypt, they're not able to get out. So it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And they can't travel anywhere. They have no voice. Even the Palestinians who go to Cairo, when they're in Cairo and they're talking to young people in Cairo, and they say that they're from Palestine, the young people look at them and go, where's Palestine? You mean Pakistan? They've never heard of Palestine, and it's the country next door. So it's kind of being expunged from the history books. And if you look at a map of what Israel and Palestine was back in 1946 when it was first divided, and then you look at what it is, or in 1947 when it was first divided, and you look at what it is now, there's almost none of Palestine left. And in another 10 or 15 years, there will be no Palestine on the map at all, and it will all be Israel. And this is not acceptable. And really, when you look at the where Israel comes from, the founding of Israel, there's a lot of speculation over who these people are who actually founded Israel. It's every indication that these people are not the original Jews who left Israel, and so they have no claim to the land anyway. And this is very, very, very delicate situation to talk to people about. But I don't know. I mean, it says that you should know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And when I see the fruit that has been born from the formation of the state of Israel, there's been nothing but war and bloodshed and racism and apartheid. And Israel is, unfortunately, it's an apartheid state. It is, whether people want to admit it or not, it's a supremacist society whereby Palestinians have absolutely no rights. But they can't just go and kill them. They've got to sort of slowly do it. But I would suggest that also the treatment that the Palestinians have been subject to is what has created the war on terror. It's what's created this whole global situation. Without this treatment of the Arabs in the Middle East, we wouldn't have the war on terror. I think it's all been done by design. And personally, I think after what I've witnessed in Palestine and what I've witnessed in the Arab world and the blame that I've seen put on these people and what we've done to Iraq and Afghanistan, I mean, look at Fallujah, what we did to Fallujah in Iraq. I think the Arab world has shown an incredible amount of restraint towards the West for what we've done to these countries, what the West has done under the guise of bringing freedom and democracy to them. We haven't. These were progressive nations, Afghanistan in the 70s, these women were wearing normal miniskirts and stuff like Westerners wear. Iran was a progressive Western nation until we got involved. All these nations were doing fine until we got involved. And I think it's important we pay attention. But the video footage that I showed in Gaza Strip, the particular 6 minutes that you're talking about, this was from an operation called Cast Lead, which happened in over Christmas 2008, 2009. It started on the 27th of December 2008, and it went for about 21 days or 23 days and finished in mid-January 2009. And this was a vicious assault against Gaza Strip by Israeli forces in response to rocket attacks they've been receiving from Hamas, which are very, very small rockets, which happen because the people just get sick of it and they just respond sometimes, because Israel is constantly taunting them. And that's what they do. And it was particularly disturbing footage because it showed the extent of the attacks on Gaza. It showed them using white phosphorus, striking the UN school with white phosphorus. And white phosphorus is a banned chemical weapon. The use of white phosphorus is a war crime. But we don't hear of any of this. We don't hear any of it on the news. And this is what these people are putting up with whenever Israel says they need to go and attack Gaza. If you look at that video, that's what's happening in Gaza. And you don't see any military on there. Remember, like 1.8 million people, over 900,000 children, so that's 350 to 400,000 men. Less than 1% of those men have ever fired a weapon. And Hamas make up a very, very small group of people in Palestine. And even if they don't like Hamas, there's no reason all of the civilians or the people or the women and children and the entire state should be subject to the type of treatment that they are and be ignored by the rest of the world. Look, that's the terrible part, is that they're being ignored, But this is what's created the war on terror. You know, this belief that these people are terrorists. It's all been done for a reason, and it creates terrorists as well. It creates people that just don't feel anymore. Because if you terrorize a child, you kill his parents in front of him, his mother in front of him, he cries. You do it again the next year. You kill his father in front of him, and he cries. You kill his sister in front of him the next year, he cries. You kill his brother the next year, he doesn't cry anymore. Eventually, he doesn't feel anything. And all he wants to do is go and attack and take out these people. So it perpetuates the problem. And it's being done by design. It's been orchestrated. It's purposely done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing that keeps resonating in me after watching that 6 minutes of video that just blew me away, because these beautiful children, just tons of them with arms blown off, with legs in horrible agony, and where all of us on our watch on this planet are clueless, are absolutely clueless. And so my question to you here is, how can humanity, in the face of these atrocities, be so oblivious and be so, what are the mechanisms? And of course, this is the majority of what I want to dive into in this next piece. What is allowing us to permit this level of genocide of these children, and that we do nothing? I mean, this is even just one small place. We have this all around the world, and you break this down in a lot of the information that you put out. But I know that you talk about our mind control, so I want to ask you, what are the factors impacting humanity that is allowing this to continue, in your opinion?
Well, really, it's what I call psychic pathogens, the way we've been trained to think. Most of what you see in Palestine and Israel is because people are locked into this pathological thinking. They believe ownership is real. They actually believe they can own part of the earth, which is kind of bizarre, because the earth's been here for 4.6 billion years. It'll be here for another 100 or 200 billion years. We're here for 50 or 100. If you do the math, you figure out you actually don't own anything. The earth owns you. So it's the concept that this piece of land is ours, it belongs to our race, our religion, and we need to fight off everybody. We're God's chosen people, all this sort of stuff. It's this religious pathological thinking, and this economic pathological thinking, this social pathological thinking. And it's all pathological. And people are trained to be this way. So it's very difficult to even judge the Israelis that are carrying out a lot of these atrocities, because they're trained to think this. They're trained to think that they have been downtrodden. They're trained to think that they're God's chosen people. They're trained into this. I mean, there's a lot of Israelis that don't think this way. There's a huge amount of Israeli kids that really, really sympathize with the Palestinian people. There's Israelis who won't join the military because they know that the Israeli military is essentially a terrorist organization. It's the most well-trained terrorist organization on earth. Because Israel, it's not defending itself. It's carrying out acts of aggression all the time against its neighbours. It's not defending itself at all. It hasn't been defending itself since it got there. I mean, the state of Israel ultimately shouldn't even be there at the moment. It says in the Torah that God, and it says in the Bible, that God will give the Jewish people Israel after the final battle. That's what it says. I mean, this is the religious basis of the place. So my argument is, well, we haven't had the final battle yet. What's it doing there? And by its existence, it seems like it's attempting to create the final battle, because it's just been an aggressive state ever since it was formed. And the suggestion is that hasn't even been formed by Semitic Jews. It's been formed by Khazarians. Very good indication that these people are Khazarians. And it's not just because they're white. I mean, obviously they're not Semitic. Benjamin Netanyahu's not Semitic. So it's not just because they're white skinned. It just would stands to reason, because of the warlike nature of these people, the psychopathic nature of these people, and some of the things these people have done have been, things that Ariel Sharon did. I mean, human beings don't do this stuff. This is incredible psychotic thinking that these people have done, incredibly psychotic actions. I mean, the butcher of Beirut, Ariel Sharon, responsible for the death of so many people, so many women and children. And normal people can't do this. So when you look at the history of the Khazar Empire and realize what these people were like, well, it seems to be that these are the same crew. This is the same crew. And they all converted to Judaism, and now they've basically come and stolen Palestine. And they're creating a Jewish state, which is being used to basically create the war on terror. And you can't, it's difficult. You can't blame people. I mean, you say this sort of stuff. I say this, I get called anti-Semitic. But I'm not. I mean, I've got friends who are Jewish. I don't have a problem with Jewish people at all. I've got a problem with the state of Israel because of the actions of the state of Israel and what it's doing. I've got a problem with seeing people in its neighbouring lands, like the Palestinians, suffering the way they do because of the supremacist attitude that's bred into the people within this state. And that's the problem, you know what I mean? But again, how do you train people to think differently? I mean, all we can really do is lead by example. Try to get people to see that we're all in this together, you know. And it's really weird, really look at it, and there'll be Jews out there that'll want to string me up for saying this one. But if you really look back at the history of Israel, the Holy Land of Israel, which existed within Palestine, and you understand that Judaism is actually a faith, it's not a race, then those Jews who were born in the Holy Land of Israel are actually Palestinians who practice the Jewish faith. All the original Jews were actually Palestinians. And you can be a Jew and a Palestinian the same as you can be a Palestinian and a Muslim, same as you can be a Palestinian and a Christian, because these are all faiths. It's not a race. So that's a kind of a weird thing to think about. And that could possibly be why the Semitic Jews in Israel are really not afforded the respect that the white-skinned European Jews are in Israel. And it's the white-skinned European Jews that actually came and set the whole place up. But what I talk about in the talk is where the funding came from, which was from the transfer agreement, which was an agreement entered into by Jewish Palestine and the Nazi regime, which is kind of freaky for a lot of people when they really get a grasp on that. There is a paper trail that proves that there were 60,000 Jews shipped down to Palestine in 1933, and they were given $100 million by Adolf Hitler's government in order to set up basically the foundation for what became modern-day Israel. And that paper trail exists. That's an interesting thing for people. If you tell them that modern Israel actually came from funding from the Nazi regime, it's a bit of a culture shock for a lot of people, but the fact is that it's true.
And how do you give a country that already has its own people living on their own land, how do you give that away to another group of people that are coming from, you're saying, Kazakhstan? It's a completely, it's between Europe and Russia, right? It's a whole other place. It's a completely other, it was an invasion, a planned takeover, and a genocide. It has nothing to do with helping the poor Jews that were so oppressed by Hitler finding their homeland. This is a complete line of BS that we've been taught ever since we were children.
Well, there is. I mean, and if you look at...
And I am a Jew. I am a Jewish background, by the way. I don't believe in Judaism, but I am from Russian Jewish stock, just so you all know that.
Yeah, okay. Well, see, the thing is that... yeah, I mean, they've got about as much legitimacy as America promising Ireland to Hungary. You know what I mean? I mean, there's no basis.
Exactly.
It goes way back to the Balfour Declaration and what happened in World War One. And what happened in World War One was actually what caused a lot of the animosity towards the Jews in Germany anyway, and led to World War Two. But the thing is, I don't think we've been told the truth about too many things in any of our history, especially not in modern history. I think people have got a pretty distorted view of what's actually going on in the world. I really do. There's a lot more.
Totally.
I mean, history is written by the winners. People need to look at that. And from World War II, it almost seems like a lot of what happened in World War II was done specifically to result in the formation of Israel, because they didn't get it after World War One. They really tried to get it after World War One, but they didn't. There was a thing called the Balfour Declaration. This was James Balfour, which is a paper trail that shows that this agreement was made between the Jews of Palestine and the British government. The British government actually gave them Palestine. And Britain reneged on the deal because it wasn't really theirs to give away. And because this happened, the Jews had made history. Because in World War One, if you look at World War One, and World War One, it wasn't really a world war. It was 3 countries against 4 countries. You basically had, what was it? It was like the British Isles, which was Great Britain and France and Russia on one side, and it was Germany, Hungary, Austria, and Turkey on the other side. So that was World War One. And within 2 years, Germany had won that war. The war was basically won. And the French army was completely decimated. The Russian army was defecting, basically, because they didn't like the Tsar very much. They were turning back. The Turkish army was, the Italian army was in complete disarray. Britain had been defeated because the Germans had U-boats. They had submarines. Nobody knew about submarines. They first brought out by Germany in World War One, and no one had ever heard of these things before. And so Germany had basically won the war and offered peace terms to England, and these were basically status quo peace terms. Let's leave things the way they are before the war. Let's just stop fighting. Let's go home and all forget this happened. That was basically the peace terms that the German Kaiser was offering England, And
Max, we have to take a break right now. We'll be right back. Sorry to interrupt. We're right in the middle of a thought. We'll pick this up right where we left off. Stay with us. This is Sienna with Max Igan, illuminating the Shadowland. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. This is Sienna with Illuminating the Shadowland. I'm here tonight with Max Igan. Max, are you there?
I certainly am.
Fabulous. All right. Well, I'm sorry I cut you off there, and you're right in the middle of giving us some true history. It's so important that we recognize that even our history has been taken from us. We were educated in a system that fed us lies, and we have no idea the world that we were born into, and therefore how can we know the responsibility we have or the actions that we can take? So I am all ears, Max.
Okay, so like I was saying, in World War II, at that time in World War II, Germany had basically won the war and was offering surrender terms or ceasefire terms to England because Germany never really wanted to continue the war. But what happened was the Jewish people, the Khazarian Jews within Germany, because most of the Jews at that time were living in Germany. A large section of Khazarian Jews were living in Germany. I call these people Khazarian Jews because that's my belief of where they come from. Okay, when I say that, that's my belief of where these European Jews come from. And I think there's a lot to back that up. And though there was most of them were living in Germany, and America was also very pro-German at the time because, most of the Jewish bankers, most of the Khazarian Jewish bankers that ran the banking system in Germany wouldn't lend any money to England for the war because they didn't like Russia. And England was in bed with Russia, so they said, well, while England's in bed with Russia, we're not going to give you a cent for the war. And that's why England had such a hard time in World War One. But when England was offered surrender terms, a lot of the Jews from Europe, the Khazarian Jews from Germany and from England, all got together and they went and spoke to the English government and said, hey, you don't have to surrender because you can still win the war if we get America involved. And leave it to us. We'll get America involved in World War One if you give us Palestine for a homeland. And England sort of thought about it and said, okay, we'll do it, even though it wasn't theirs to give. And that's what brought America into the war. There was a whole series of events that happened then. You could start getting into the bombing of the Lusitania, the torpedoing of the Lusitania, which was a steamship that got bombed in the war zone, which is what brought America into the war. That there was all sorts of conspiracy ideas around that, about how that happened. it's interesting that the Jewish banksters, the Khazarian Jewish banksters, had said, we'll get America involved in the war if we give us Palestine. And then the next thing you know, the Lusitania blows up and America's in the war. So who organised for that to happen? You know? And that's how it happened. So leading up to World War II, I mean, the Germans had always been quite good to these Khazarian Jews. They'd let them come in. They'd let them kind of, run a lot of the stuff in the country. They owned a lot of businesses in Germany. They're a little bit annoyed that these guys had actually sold them out, because Germany had actually won the war and was offering peace terms, and everyone could have gone back to normal. But because these banksters got involved and got America involved in the war, suddenly Germany and the other countries lost the war. Germany was divided up through the Versailles Treaty. Lots of land was given to Croatia and the neighbouring countries, which is a lot of what caused World War II to break out as well. So, you can really see how there was a lot of stuff put in place to lead to this. And when you look at World War II, and there's this whole thing about, all these exterminating Jews. Well, there may have been Jews that were being persecuted in Germany at the time. I don't argue that at all, because of the situation that had grown there politically and some of the things that these people had done against the German people. So when everything turned to hell in Germany in the mid 40s or the late 30s and 40s, then it's understandable that these people would have been persecuted. But the interesting thing is that there are actually about 150,000 Jews who were in Hitler's army. And there are 12 Jewish field marshals in Hitler's army as well. So if it was really about exterminating Jews, what were these people doing in his army? And is it possible, when you look at the formation of Israel and how it all went down, is it at all possible, and this is a theory I'm just putting out there now, that the 150,000 Jews that were in Hitler's army were quite possibly Khazarians, and that's who persecuted most of the Semitic Jews in order to set up the formation of the State of Israel, so the Khazarians could move down there and do exactly what they're doing now. And everything seems to...
Oh, my God.
It really does. And if you look at the control of the media, all they're going to do is put out the story they want, and people will believe what they're told to believe. But there's paper trails that indicate this whole thing has been a setup. But these Khazarians have been roaming around Europe looking for a home since 900 AD. And they've got their eye on Palestine. They've gone down. And many of them, I believe, have actually convinced themselves that they are Semitic Jews, even though they're not. They couldn't possibly be. But many of them convince themselves that they are. That it is their land, that God promised it to them, and all this sort of stuff. We get back to ownership. We get back to this pathological thinking and this religious zealotry that people seem to use to justify their actions. The Redeemer complex, the whole Christ thing and God thing. God's chosen people. It's quite bizarre. But I think the whole thing's been set up, and now these people are down there. They're embedded like a tick. They've got missiles trained on every country on Earth. They've even said the thing called the Samson option, that if our existence is ever threatened, we will take out every other country in the world with us. Because we've got missiles trained on everywhere. They're one of the largest nuclear arsenals on Earth. They're completely no weapons inspected.
Israel.
Nobody can do anything and question them about anything because of the Holocaust. You can't question them, because if you do, you're labeled as anti-Semitic, and they bring up the Holocaust and the whole thing gets shut down. And yet Israel just exists right there in the center of the Middle East, creating so much instability. It has a huge nuclear arsenal. It's got weapons trained on every country on Earth, and it is openly said on at least 2 occasions that it will take out every country on Earth if its existence is threatened. And I think this is the Khazars. It sounds exactly like what the Khazars would do. I think their own actions go very, very well to backing up the idea that that's who these people are.
Well, we have to look at this straight in the face and see what's going on, because this is the powder keg that, they're jonesing for World War III pretty bad. That they've tried it numbers of times, and they keep creating this state of eternal unrest. They keep infiltrating in all of these uprisings, and now we're in Ukraine. What's going on there? Do you see there? It seems like that they really, really want to get this World War III thing happening, and they just can't do it the way they used to do it anymore. Thank heavens.
They've been crying out Arab terrorists for years now. They've been trying to kickstart a war with the Arab world for the last 30 or 40 years, and it just hasn't been working. We've done everything we can to activate the Arabs. We've just decimated Afghanistan, Iraq, we've done Syria, Libya, now Egypt's falling over, Palestine. I mean, done everything we can to provoke these people into war, and they're just not taking the bait. So what they've done with Ukraine is they've basically gone in and cut off all of Russia's gas pipelines, because there's a lot of Russian infrastructure flows through the Ukraine. And they've done this to try to provoke Russia into World War III. They desperately want to kickstart World War III. And that's what it's all about. And I would even suggest that this could even be what this Malaysian Airlines flight is about. This missing plane. This is so obviously been hijacked, and it's so obviously been hijacked by probably Western forces, I'd say. Probably Israel and the United States have done that. Just probably because there was a bunch of Chinese scientists on board and they wanted information about it. Because if things do escalate from the Ukraine situation, it will be Russia and China and what countries in Europe that want to side with them against America and all of the coalition of the criminally insane. So, and you've got to look at this. I mean, which side's best? I mean, they're all pretty demented. So, but this is a really dangerous situation in Ukraine. It has the possibility of escalating into something quite large if we let it. I mean, that's the thing. We stopped the crisis in Syria. That was done by the people of the world because we all saw through it. And if enough people can speak out about what's going on in Ukraine and simply refuse to be a part of it, then it will fall apart as well. But they're really, really pushing for this global conflict. They really are.
Well, the people in the rest of the world are very aware of what America is doing all over the world. And it's reached a place where it's really just obscene beyond measure, and it does feel like somebody has to come, even if it's this crazy thing, not that Putin is an angel, but to finally put us in some kind of check. I mean, it seems to me there are masses of people in country that are seeing the way that we go in and destroy countries and take them over and manipulate people and situations with all the collateral damage just for our interests and for our resources and the insatiable corporate greed machine. And nothing is, before it was hidden in the shadows. Well, now it's very much in people's faces. And in some ways, one thinks that because Putin has said, great, you're going to slap sanctions on us, and this is happening tomorrow on the 17th of March, and he's good. We'll crash your dollar. We'll take you off of the world's premier currency. You want to play your game, you're done. And it's interesting how this is going to play out. If they're all going to back off yet again, or if this is going to be a big one that actually creates some kind of shift.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, most of the world will just say, yeah, okay, not a problem. We want the United States out of the picture anyway. But you've got to understand how the United States will play it to their people. I mean, the propaganda machine in the United States is huge, absolutely huge, and the majority of the people believe the government's on their side. So they can basically cook up any story and they can say that it was a threat from somebody else. I mean, you can see where this could go. And if there is any threat of the United States dollar losing its standing as the world reserve currency, then it's all over for the United States. So you've got to wonder how far they're willing to push it. But also, I mean, the United States is puppeteered by Europe anyway. I mean, it's all puppeteered by the whole Vatican system, the whole Crown Corporation system. And, the Zionists are right in there with that as well. So, I mean, you can see where it's all going. It's a big showdown that's happening. And I think, I really think no matter how far they push it, I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's too many people like you and I, there's too many people in the world that are awake to this now. And there's too many people that are speaking out about the reality of the situation in the world today. And I think that they're not going to get away with it. I really don't. I think the more they try this, the more obvious it becomes to people and the bigger opportunity we get to step away from it and to hold these people accountable. The same as what's happening here in Australia. I mean, the police state that's been built here is phenomenal. Right in your face now. And people are up in arms about these huge marches in Melbourne and Brisbane today, I believe. So there's a lot of people getting out and making a lot of noise about it. And people are starting to realise that this is a global thing. It's basically a big... All these wars are simply hostile takeovers of different corporations. That's all they are. And people are starting to realise this now. It's one big department store. They're just trying to consolidate the franchises. That's what the TPP is about, Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. That's all these free trade agreements are about. It's about consolidating power, consolidating department store, more centralisation of power, and basically turning the world into one big shop. That's what it's all about, and people are waking up to it.
Max, tell us what's going on. Tell us what's going on in Queensland, with the Chinese mining and the potential of desecrating one of the great breadbasket production areas in the world, and where is that standing right now?
Well, it's all looking pretty bad. They've brought in this new VLAD legislation, the Vicious Law Association Disestablishment Bill, it's called, which has basically been presented to the people as being a way of protecting us against outlaw bike gangs. And it says nothing
bike
about
gangs, okay.
Bikie gangs, outlaw gangs, you know.
Yeah.
Completely smoke screen, you know. If you read the legislation, what it's about curtailing crowds. It's about crowd control, bypassing the judicial system in regard to crowd control. Any group of 3 or more people with government names as being a group of interest can be arrested and put in jail without charge or trial. And they're doing this because they're about to open the whole place up for mining operations. About 4 or 5 years ago, most of Queensland's breadbasket, most of our food bowl, was sold to China and is earmarked for coal mines. And this is going to be happening in the next few years. I think they're having the Commonwealth Games here I thought it was 2016, but I think it's 2018 they're going to have the Commonwealth Games here. So I would suggest it's going to be probably opened up while the games are on, while people are distracted with the games. They'll start really going hard with this mining operations. And any people who protest will be able to be arrested under this legislation. As soon as any violence starts at all the government has to do is name this group, which could be any protest group at all. That's a vicious lawless association. And really, all they've got to do is infiltrate the group, start some violence, and as soon as one person starts some violence, well, that's it. Your group is classed as a violent organisation. Whether you know the person who did it or not, whether you even know the group did something violent or not, doesn't matter. We've named you as a vicious lawless association. Now we can come and arrest you, and we can put you in jail without charge or trial. You know, and that's what this legislation is all about. That's what they're going to do. And it's they're pushing it out across Victoria and New South Wales as well. They're trying to get it in the whole country. And if they can get away with it the way they've done here, then you'll see this happening in your countries as well. Because they use each country as a test bed. You know, see what works where. And when they get something that works, then they extrapolate it out to the rest of the countries. And that's what's happening here in Australia. I mean, the place is turning into a blatant police state. But the people are waking up to it. There are some massive protests in the street. They passed legislation in Victoria that you're not allowed to protest. So there's about 20 or 30,000 people marching in the streets today, I believe, in Victoria, simply because they've been told not allowed to. You know, so people are waking up.
Yeah, are the police going up against them?
Well, I'm not sure. I haven't heard any reports. The media isn't reporting that it's even happening. So I'm only hearing things from people on the ground, you know. Because the media doesn't tell the rest of the people. They don't want the population to know this is even going on. You find the majority of people in Victoria probably don't even know it's happening. You know, and it's happening right there in their capital city. But, you know, the more they do this, the more people are waking up. The more they try to repress things, the easier it is to wake people up. The more ammunition we've got to wake people up with. You know, because it becomes more and more obvious and people begin to see that it is an opportunity for freedom. That's really what we've got here. You know, this time in history, I think it's the greatest opportunity for freedom we've ever had because the control mechanism is now being laid so bare. All the information of how we got here has been laid so bare. And you begin to see what the real problem is, which is our disempowerment, our choice to remain disempowered. We don't have to because the people that are doing this are just people just like us. nobody has any more authority than anybody else. So we can fix this situation. I really think we can. I think it was the best chance we've ever had to do it.
We have so much addition to allowing our perpetrators, our governments, to slay us, and we seem frightened children, this post-traumatic stress, where we just, many still cannot stand, and many people feel they can't do anything. And I know that you have a new project, Max, called the Full Circle Project. We have about 8 more minutes in this hour. We'll have another hour next week. But I would like to hear a bit to end this show about the Full Circle Project. What can the average person do in the face of this mega corporate atrocity that seems so empowered with mass military and ongoing total dissolution of our liberties worldwide? What can we do?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, you've got to start on a grassroots level. I ultimately believe that every problem we've got has been allowed to come into being because we are disunited as community. And that's what I try to do with the Full Circle Project, is unite the communities around the world, unite people within their own communities, and start projects whereby we can show the world that we can make a difference if we all band together. There's one particular thing I want to do is buy back large sections of Amazon to prevent palm oil companies from taking them. I think this would really be inspiring for people to see this, because if we all band together and do this, it will show that we can make a difference. But I really want to start organising initiatives in local communities all around the planet, get everybody involved, like create an umbrella organisation where everybody can be involved in their own communities taking action, which is going to break down the barriers in their communities, unite them with their communities so they have the ability to stand against this machine. Because it's only going to happen from a grassroots level. We've been trained to give our authority away is the problem. We've been trained to believe in legal fiction and to forget what real law is. And if we ever try to stand up against the system, we do it personally, and we don't have the support of our community. We don't have the true knowledge of ourselves to be able to do it. We try using the legal system to beat the legal system, and you won't, because it's not designed that way. I really believe if we've got united, respectful communities, we can stand up together and we can change the whole thing. I really do. But even protesting, protesting is good. Marches are good in as much as it shows solidarity. But unless you're actually marching with a true purpose and you've got something to go on with from there, it's not going to work. So that's what I want to do with the Full Circle Project, is create initiatives that we can all get involved in and simply turn our back on this system, create a new system that works within the system, create some sort of a template we can all use in our communities to start these initiatives, which are going to get the people around you involved and are going to create some sort of a system that you can free yourself from this one from. Even as much as starting cooperatives and setting up your own banking system within your own community, so it frees you from the central banking system. Things like this. There's all sorts of things we can do to just step away from this system, but we need the power of community to do it. So all of these initiatives have got to be aimed at breaking down the barriers between you and your neighbours. We've got to be able to do this, and this is one of the most difficult things to do because people are locked within pathological thinking.
We are. We really are. We're afraid of each other, and we are so disempowered. And even the alternative media, even ourselves, are painting these horrific pictures as people are waking up, and sometimes it's putting people into more shock and more torture. So I completely support your Full Circle Project. And how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to donate and protect? I know, Max, you do this. You work 24/7. You're just incredibly dedicated, and you're doing it totally on donation. So I really encourage people to go to your website and to donate and to become involved. You are one of the few people that really lays it out and is creating an alternative for people. How would they get in touch with you, Max? What would they do if they're interested?
Well, they can go to the Full Circle website, which is fullcirclenow.net, and they can sign up to the mailing list. And there's ways you can contribute from the website there, or I can go to my other website, theprohouse.com, send me a message through there. Just get information out to people, you know. I really think if we can lead by example in all that we do, then we can find a way through this. But we've got to want to be involved. And like I said, I think that's what this time is. That's what this time in history is. It's a time where we've been given the opportunity to get involved, you know. So we've got to do this. I'm actually working on a film that I had hoped to release it this month, but I'm so backlogged and I'm still separating footage and going through footage. So I'm trying to release a film which will be released later this year, which will officially launch the Full Circle project and get people involved. I've got a lot of speaking dates coming up. I've just done a whole speaking tour around Australia with the Freedom Summits. And I've got to go and speak in Sydney again next month, and I've got to go and speak in Perth the month after, and I'm speaking at the Boom Festival later this year. So the word is getting out to a lot of people, but people have really got to want to be involved, and that's what I hope to do with this project. Create a mechanism whereby we can break down the barriers in our community and get into this pathological thinking. We're trapped into ownership and stuff and the social ladder that we seem to always be climbing. We judge ourselves and we judge other people by parameters that have been given to us by somebody else. It's somebody else's idea of what we should think. I think that we've got to get away from that. I do a lot of stuff on the shows and a lot of stuff in my workshops where I try to help people rediscover who and what they are. Because I believe when you do this, and you really start to begin to understand yourself and respect yourself, then it breaks down all the barriers with the people around you. That's what we need to do. We need to rediscover ourselves and realize that there is no problem with your neighbours. It doesn't matter if they look different or dress differently or have different stuff. It doesn't matter. We're all in this together, and we're all enslaved to this fictional idea of what reality should be. And if we were to simply respect each other, we could all stand together and we could change the world in a day. I really think it'll be that simple. There's no battle that needs to be fought or anything. We just have to change our perspective of who and what we are. And get out of this pathological thinking and these supremacist ideals that have been given to us by other people. Because we're all in this together, you know?
Absolutely. And the power of us supporting one another and coming out of our separation, our isolation, our paranoia and our fear that has been conditioned by the system to not trust one another, and recognize that we are a mass ocean of brothers and sisters that have all been wounded by this system, whether we have bought into being part of the predator aspect or the victim aspect, that we are all here together experiencing this every day. And we can awaken from the trance that we've been placed in. We can do things to change. And next week, when I have you back for another hour, Max, I want to talk about the trance that we're in, how we got here, what's enforcing it, and break it down in some greater detail so that we can see it more clearly, so that we can set ourselves free. As you're talking about, I really, really want to support you in bringing more people into the project and doing all that we can to rally around people who are these divine masculine leaders and feminine leaders. Good night, everybody. Go visit crowhouse.com and come back next week for part 2 with Max Igan on Illuminating the Shadowlands.